Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Gridiron 2022. I'm Dr. Ron Poniewasz, football MD, and he is Professor Larry Kelly. He's going to instruct us on football around the county, and he's also a member of the Luxembourg, Garbutt, Kelly, and George law firm and the Shenango varsity baseball coach. And this is the award-winning Gridiron 2022.
Yes, sir.
How's that better?
I like it. We are award-winning journalists. You know, journalism was my first love. I was a communications major at Slippery Rock, and one of my first jobs was at the Newcastle News, and I was living the dream. I really was.
All right. Okay, well, we appreciate you joining us, Larry. Happy to have you on board. And this week we have Athlete of the Week. We'll tell you about a quarterback and getting it done when the chips are down. Larry Kelly will tell you about the Red Hurricane report and speak his mind on that. And then we'll have another topic, and we'll limit it to the Big Seven Conference. You know, we've got some teams in that conference, and they play rough and tumble football for sure. That's a big time conference, even though it's 1A level. But we'll tell you more about that one when we get to it. But first off, let's tell you about the Athlete of the Week, and it is Wilmington quarterback Tuff McConahy. He is a 6'4", 170-pound junior quarterback safety. And Friday night, he was 8 of 14 through the air for 74 yards, a touchdown, and 1 interception. He threw a 7-yard touchdown pass with 9 seconds left to boot a book, and that made the score 21-20 Hickory. And the subsequent 2-point conversion was run in by Tyler McCullen, and Wilmington comes away with a 22-21 District 10 Region 3 2A 3A victory over host Hickory. Larry Kelly, your thoughts on Tuff McConahy?
Well, first of all, big win for Wilmington. That's a big win. Hickory is a really good football team, and they have a great football program. You know, I always used to say that anybody can play well when the score is 40-0. Anybody can look like an All-American when, you know, the game has already been decided. But, you know, I measure athletes in crunch time. You know, I measure basketball players, you know, who are the big game players, who are the guys that we'll label Mr. Fourth Quarter. And I can now label Tuff McConahy as Mr. Fourth Quarter, because when the chips were down, when they needed a drive, when they needed it most, he drove his team down the field, and with 9 seconds left, threw a touchdown pass. That's big time stuff. Again, it's one thing to rush for 200 yards in a 40-0 game. Good, great athletes. But I think you guys at the Newcastle News made an excellent choice this week, because Tuff's statistics weren't that eye-popping. I think he only threw for 74 yards. But in crunch time, when it counted the most, he clutched up, he delivered, and not only did he deliver, Coach Philly and win for 2. And, you know, I was always a guy, I play to win. To quote Mike Tomlin, I'm not going to live in my fears. You know, at Shenango, we lost the state championship game because we were trying to steal second base in the last inning of a 2-run game. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it again. I play to win. And that's what Coach Philly did. And great win for the Greyhounds, and big-time clutch performance for Tuff McConahy. Well-deserved, good choice by the News in selecting Tuff as the Athlete of the Week.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that as far as, you know, came through in the clutch, because this isn't a one-time thing with Tuff McConahy. They are 3-1, so 2 of their wins have come via fourth quarter comebacks. This one was one of them, and previously they beat Greenville 14-7 when they trailed Greenville 7-0 going to the fourth quarter. And they got all 14 of their points in the fourth quarter. So he engineered 2 fourth quarter game winners essentially this season, and that's not easy. I mean, granted, the one against Greenville, it was a 1-score deficit. This one here was a 2-score deficit, and that's tough, especially when you're talking about a team that likes to run the ball in the wing T offense. So that means they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit, and they were out of their element probably, but he came through, and and he's improved over these last couple of years. That's for sure.
Listen, you know, they really, if you look at the statistics, got outplayed by Hickory. Hickory had 15 first downs. Wilmington had 8. You know, Wilmington only rushed for 116 yards, which for them is not what they normally do.
Right.
But again, in looking at the statistics, Tuff was 10 for 16. Actually, he threw for 114 yards. So I think I said 74 yards. I think that last drive was 74 yards is where I was mistaken. But, you know, they kind of got outplayed, but they scored 22 points in the fourth quarter when it counted the most. And, you know, that's a credit to the team, to the coaching staff, to the culture that they've built. You know, there's certain times that are crunch time in a basketball game, in a football game. At Shenango High School, my baseball team, I tell them the 7th inning belongs to us. That's our inning, and we're going to win it every time out. And it looks like this year the fourth quarter belongs to Wilmington.
Yeah. Larry, certainly you would remember this. You were old enough for it. I remember it because I was a kid growing up. There's a little story called the 1980 Cleveland Browns, what went by the Cardiac Kids moniker.
Yes.
I think you could probably throw that tag on Wilmington. However, you know, a lot of times people, you could easily say this now, 42 years after the fact, you know, after the fact of that 1980 season, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And Mike Davis picked off Brian Sipe in the end zone of a close game. You know, you just kind of wonder, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Although, you know, hey, if you're going to tell me that Wilmington's going to be in any game or every game in the fourth quarter with a chance to win it, I like their chances with Brandon Fillion as a coach, that offensive line, Tuff, McConahy. So I like their position if that's what you're going to tell me.
Well, they were down twice in the fourth quarter, came back both times. You know, pretty impressive. And to be able to do that, not only this year, but year in and year out, it's the culture they built. That's what I said. They are the gold standard for Lawrence County football, and they don't want to give up that mantle anytime soon. And congratulations, Tuff. He drove them down the field when it counted the most, and that's impressive.
Yeah. Okay, so Wilmington goes to 2-1 in region play, 3-1 overall. Big game at home this week against Sharon. That'll be a region matchup. And Wilmington has started off the season by playing 3 of its first 4 games on the road. So much needed home cooking this week against Sharon. And then I believe the big one is the week after against Farrell. So as you would say, put your big boy pants on because business is about to pick up here for Wilmington.
Get your big boy pants on. I give that speech to my team every once in a while. Go get your big boy pants. It's time. And yeah, those are 2 tough games they got coming. Sharon's always a good football team, and of course Farrell is Farrell. So we'll see. But congratulations, Wilmington. Tuff. I'm just reviewing the article again. Before the 7-yard touchdown pass, they had a 4th and 7 with 13 seconds left, and he hit a crossing pattern, you know, for the score. So I mean, it was just one of those games. They converted when they had to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the winning play. Started with 13 seconds left, and the ball crossed the end zone. It was with 9 seconds left. So yeah,
9 seconds to go. Yeah, but they were in a 4. It was do or die. My point was they were in a 4th and 7 at the time, and you know, he throws a touchdown pass. That's tough to do. It's a pretty congested area down around the goal line. You know, in that scenario. But congratulations, well deserved athlete of the week. Good call. Newcastle News. Good choice.
We appreciate that, Larry. Thank you for your support.
I don't always agree with your calls, but
I know.
This week I do.
I know. I certainly know that. And Sharon is 1-1 in region, 2-2 overall. So congratulations to Tuff McConahy for a great performance in an athlete of the week honor, well deserved.
There's one thing I learned growing up around here. People should look out for each other. Be friends and neighbors that you can count on. So it bothers me when people who are hurt in automobile accidents get bullied by the insurance company. I don't let bullies run over my clients. I do what I was taught growing up. Step up, stand up, and speak up for those who can't. I'm Larry Kelly, and I'm a Newcastle guy.
back with you here this week on Gridiron to close it up, and we're going to tell you all about the Big Seven Conference. And Larry, you know, we have, if you count Wilmington, which is in District 10, there'd be 4 conferences, but we'll limit this just to the WPIL since that's what we're mainly focusing on. We've got Parkway, Midwestern Athletic, and the Big Seven, and that's arguably, depending on if anybody would wish to argue that, I don't think you really could. That's 3 of the best conferences football-wise across the WPIL, and our teams are in all of those conferences. In the Big Seven, let's talk about the Big Seven. You got a marquee this week. It's Laurel at Union. Laurel has yet to play a conference game because they were off last week. They're 2-1 overall. They visit Union, which is 1-0 in league, 3-1 overall. So let's start with that game. Laurel at Union, boy. First off, Laurel had an odd week off last week. They tried to find a game. It just didn't didn't work out. How's that week off going to hurt them or help them if you want to take both tabs at it?
Well, I believe that having a week off after the 3rd week in the season isn't so bad. It gives your team a chance to get healthy. Maybe work on a few things that need to be ironed out from a standpoint, offensively and defensively, to make sure an execution standpoint, make sure you're executing offensively and defensively. So, I don't think it's a bad thing. I really don't. They've played a few games now, have a few games under the belt. So I don't think it's a bad thing to have a week off at this time. And it gives them an opportunity and their coaching staff to not only watch Union in person, which they probably did, but also on film, because Union's a good football team. I saw that game last week against Shenango, and let me tell you something. The Scotties are the real deal, and they're very athletic, and they run the ball really well, and they got athletes all over the field. It's a good football team.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Union, does this help Union that they're playing a team coming off a bye week? Because Union is still, in that game mode, whereas Laurel, I don't want to say they're going to be a step slow, but it's hard to simulate game speed. I mean, you can practice all you want, but would that help Union in any way that they didn't miss a beat in that regard?
Well, I don't think that's going to make much of a difference. Missing 1 week again, from an execution standpoint, I think this will help Laurel to iron out a few things that they saw in the first few weeks of the season. So I don't think it's a big deal that they didn't play last week. I really don't.
Okay, and you touched on Shenango. You watched that game, Union and Shenango. Shenango's homecoming. Shenango's winless on the season. They're 0-1, 0-4. Overall, they've been outscored by an average score of 35-10. I believe they had 27 kids on the roster going into the season. So, I mean, that's a very low number, even if it is a single A school. And then you're talking about if there's injuries and this and that. And we're starting to see 4 games in just how competitive they are in certain games. And just where's Shenango out as a program? What did you see from Shenango?
Well, they're playing a lot of young guys. Their starting quarterback, Sam Patton, was hurt and did not play in that game. And they're playing 9th and 10th graders. That's hard to do, Ronnie, in football. You might get away with it in basketball, maybe baseball, but, if you're a 9th grader and you're playing at the varsity level, you might be 15 years old and you're playing against young men who may be 18 or 19 years old. It's a big difference. So, Jimmy Graham's a good coach, but he's playing with a limited roster, and some of his starters are now injured, and that's a tough sled moving forward.
Yeah, and I believe they have Rochester this week, and Gene Matsuk is a Shenango graduate, so certainly that's not going to be an easy game for Shenango either. They're going down to Rochester. What do you foresee for that game?
Well, I mean, Gene Matsuk was a student. I remember covering a game for the Newcastle News when he was a player. So that's how old he is, and that's how old I am. He's a good football coach. This is his alma mater. Rochester's always good, and Shenango's young, and they're playing again with a limited roster because of injuries. Rochester probably wins the game, but at the same time, Gene Matchuk's a classy young man. He's not going to run it up, but it'll be a tough ask for Shenango to go to Rochester and win that game.
Great football in the Big 7 Conference, Larry. We see that every week, and we see it every week from all of our conferences that we cover, Big 7 MAC and Parkway. And just because that's a 1A conference doesn't take away from the talent that's down there and the brand of football that they play. And it's good talking about that level of play in the Big 7.
Well, it's Western Pennsylvania football. And, Western Pennsylvania historically has produced some of the best football at the high school level, some of the toughest young men at the high school level. You got great coaches in these conferences. You have competitive spirit amongst the team and the rivalries. They're fierce, and they've been around a long time. The game Laurel and Union. Those are old Tri-County teams. That's going to be a good football game, and there's a rivalry, with those two schools that goes way back, and it makes for great high school football. Western Pennsylvania football on a Friday night it's some of the best entertainment going.
All right. Anything else, Larry, that you have for this week?
No, there are going to be some good games, and as you like to say, the teams are kind of figuring out who they are, what they do well, what they need to work on. But it should be exciting moving forward. And as we move forward, the games are going to get even bigger, and they're going to get better. Well,
next week when we sit back down and do this all again, teams will have 5 games in the books, most of them. Mohawk will have 3. But what do you say next week we do our rankings spot? What do you think?
I like that. It's midway. I mean, the teams have played. They're 5 games in, aren't they, right now? Counting week 0?
Well, no. Everybody but Mohawk has played 4 games.
Yeah, I'm sorry. For next week, there'll be 5 games in. That's halfway through the season. So, yeah, that should be a good time to do that. I want to give a shout out to Mohawk. They played a great game against Riverside. They got beat at the final gun. But I give those young men a lot of credit. Again, they're basically playing their second game when everybody else has had 4 games and a scrimmage under their belt. So I give a shout out to the Warriors. They showed up, played hard, and almost pulled that one out. Yeah, I saw that one on stream. That was a great game. One of those games that it's hard to see any team lose. That's a tough game to have a loser in, because they both played hard, both played well, and Mohawk should get a win this week. They're going down to New Brighton, and New Brighton has been pushed around quite a bit throughout the season. So next week, everybody, we will have our rankings at the midway point, and you want to stay tuned for that. He's Larry Kelly. I'm Ron Poniewasz, and enjoy the games this week. Good luck to our student athletes and our coaches, and we'll see you back here next week, right here on Gridiron.
I became an attorney because I believe in hard work, fairness, and human decency. In a word, justice. Our workers' compensation clients deserve justice, because in an instant, their hard work turns into hard times when they get hurt on the job. No doubt, life is tough, but so am I. I've been fighting all my life, and I'll keep fighting for you. I'm Joe George, and here in Lawrence County, it's personal.